hidden contract detail leads to a shocking and expensive surprise. My mother used to run a small art supply shop in the farming community where I grew up. She took over the shop after the previous owners went bankrupt and had to sell it. She was actually doing quite well. Both of my parents are good at business, and they would probably make great partners if they could stand being in the same room together for more than 30 minutes. While running the shop, she would often get us kids to help out. One Christmas holiday, I came to stay with her for about a month. At that time, I had just turned 18, my brother was 16, and my stepsister was 8. My mother had the idea of teaching us about having a real job, so she printed contracts for us and said we would officially become her employees. For my younger siblings, the contracts were not really valid because they were under 18, but since I was 18, mine could have been legally binding. She probably did not realize that, but I was not willing to take the risk, so I filled out the contract with nonsense information, using a fake name, writing silly details, and even drawing a cat as my signature. She was very angry with me. She said I was being disrespectful and childish. Every time I tried to explain why I did it, she would cut me off and tell me to be quiet. After that argument, the situation was dropped, and we all went back to working as usual. Over the next few days, I started noticing that she was using the contracts to control my brother and stepsister in small but unfair ways. If they came back 5 minutes late from lunch, she said they were breaking the contract. If a friend came in and talked to them for a couple of minutes, that was also a problem. Even wanting to take a day off during the holidays to go out with friends was treated as breaking the contract. At that point, I decided to actually read the contract she had written. I had not bothered before because I never planned to sign it. What I saw was ridiculous. The pay was minimum wage minus travel and food costs, which came down to about $5 a week. There were no days off unless you were seriously sick. The lunch break was only 30 minutes during an 8-hour shift. There was no personal communication allowed during work hours, no eating or drinking while working, and penalties for arriving late or leaving early. It was clearly unfair. I decided I needed to teach her a lesson. Using the little legal knowledge I had from my IT studies, I rewrote the contract. In my version, pay was still minimum wage, but travel costs were reimbursed. There were paid sick days, even for something minor like a cold. The lunch break was 1 hour. Personal conversation was allowed, as long as work was still getting done. Being up to 20 minutes late or leaving early had no penalty. I also added that any IT-related work I did would be paid at double rate, even if it only took a few minutes. Finally, I added that the contract would only last 2 weeks, since I was going home soon anyway. At the end of the week, I took the new contract to my mother and apologized for how I acted earlier. I told her I had read the contract, corrected a few mistakes, and signed it. She was pleased and thanked me. She even told my brother and stepsister that this was a good lesson, saying she had left mistakes on purpose for us to find, and that we should always read contracts carefully. Ironically, she did not read mine at all. She signed it immediately and gave me a copy. For the next couple of weeks, I worked under that contract. When it was time to get paid, my brother and stepsister went first and received their usual small amount. Then it was my turn. I handed over a notebook where I had carefully recorded all my work, including hours and tasks. I had done a lot of extra work fixing her computer, so I included that at double pay. In total, I calculated that she owed me about $300. She handed me $5 just like the others. I pointed out that the amount was incorrect and asked her to check my contract and notes. As she read through everything, she became more and more upset. She refused to pay, saying it was unreasonable. I reminded her that she had signed the contract and agreed to those terms. She read it again, then tore it up and told me she would not pay me. She left with my siblings, leaving me to find my own way home. I did get home, but not in the way you might expect. I ended up getting a ride in a police car. At the station, I explained the situation and asked for help, not because I wanted to take things to court, but because I wanted her to understand the situation properly. The officer spoke to her and explained that the contract was legally binding since we were both adults. They told her she could either pay me the $300 or risk legal action. In the end, she paid me the money. After that, we did not speak for over a year. When I told my dad and my grandmother about what happened, they found the whole situation quite funny.